Good morning everyone. I am Riya Sinha, your assistant teacher. Today we are going to start chapter number 10 of history, that is traders, kings and pilgrims. In this chapter we are going to learn about kings, pilgrims, pilgrimage centers, all the mythological places, traders, and about their lifestyle. So here in this chapter, first topic is given how to find out about trade and traders. From where we have learned that what kind of things were at that time traders were done, or what kind of trading articles were there, what were their lifestyle at that time. So let's see about it. In the previous chapter we have learnt about northern black polished ware, which is a fine pottery. Especially bowls and plates were found from several archaeological sites throughout the subcontinent. So how do we think it reached these places? Obviously traders may have carried them from the places where they were made to sell them at other places. South India was famous for gold, spices and especially pepper and precious stones. Pepper was particularly valued in the Roman Empire, so much so that it was known as black gold. So traders carried many of these goods to Rome in ships across the sea and by land in caravans. There must have been quite a lot of trade, as many Roman gold coins have been found in South India. So basically pepper and precious stones was very famous in South India. Gold also. Pepper was particularly valued in the Roman Empire, and so it was known as black gold at that time. Traders used to carry many of these goods to Rome in ships and across the sea by land in caravans also. And there must have been quite a lot of trade, as many Roman gold coins have been found in South India. Traders explored several sea routes, and some of these followed the coast. There were others across the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, where sailors took advantage of the monsoon winds to cross the seas more quickly. So if they wanted to reach the western coast of the subcontinent from East Africa or Arabia, they chose to sail with the southwest monsoon. And sturdy ships had to be built for these long journeys. So basically traders had ideas about different types of sea routes, so they used to explore it also at that time, and some of these followed the coast also. There were other across the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal, where sailors took advantage of the monsoon winds to cross the seas more quickly. So if they wanted to reach the western coast of the subcontinent from East Africa or Arabia, they usually chose to sail with the southwest monsoon. Now see the next topic. New kingdoms along the coast. The southern half of the subcontinent is marked by a long coastline and with hills, plateaus and river valleys. Amongst the river valleys, that of the Kaveri is the most fertile. Chiefs and kings who control the river valleys and the coast became rich and powerful. Sangam poems mention the Movendar, and this is a Tamil word meaning the three chiefs used for the head of three ruling families, the Cholas, the Cheras and the Pandyas. You all have to learn this term, Movendar. Movendar is a Tamil word meaning three chiefs, usually used to refer three ruling families, the Cholas, the Cheras and the Pandyas, who became powerful in South India around 2300 years ago. Each of the three chiefs had two centers of power, one inland and one on the coast. Of these 6 cities, 2 were very important, Puhar or Kaveri Pattinam. the port of the Cholas, and Madurai, the capital of the Pandyas. The chiefs did not collect regular taxes, and instead they demanded and received gifts from the people. They also went on military expeditions and collected tribute from neighboring areas. They kept some of the wealth and distributed the rest amongst their supporters, including members of their family, soldiers, and poets. Many poets whose compositions are found in the Sangam collection composed poems in praise of chiefs who often rewarded them with precious stones, gold, horses, elephants, chariots, and fine cloth. So around 200 years later, a dynasty known as the Satavahanas became powerful in western India. The most important ruler of Satavahana was Gautami Putra Sri Satkarni. The most important ruler of Satavahana was Gautami Putra Sri Satkarni. So we know about him from an inscription composed on behalf of his mother, Gautami Balashri. He and other Satavahana rulers were known as Lords of Dakshinapath. Dakshinapath, literally the route leading to the south, which was also used as a name for the entire southern region. Entire southern region was referred as Dakshinapath at that time. So he sent his army to the eastern, western, and southern coast. The story of the Silk Route. The rich, glossy colors of silk as well as its smooth texture make it a highly valued fabric in most societies. Obviously, still we are using silk and we know what is the value of it. So making silk is a complicated process, as you all have learnt in your science also. So raw silk has to be extracted from the cocoons of silkworms, spun into thread and then woven into cloth. So techniques of making silk were first invented in China around 7,000 years ago. While the methods remained a closely guarded secret for thousands of years, some people from China who went to distant lands on foot, horseback, and on camels carried silk with them. The paths they followed came to be known as the Silk Route. The path which the Chinese followed basically to import and export silk, that path came to be known as the Silk Route. Sometimes Chinese rulers sent gifts of silk to rulers in Iran and West Asia, and from there the knowledge of silk spread further west. About 2000 years ago, wearing silk became the fashion amongst rulers and rich people in Rome. So it was very expensive as it had to be brought all the way from China along dangerous roads through mountains and deserts. People living along the route often demanded payments for allowing traders to pass through, so it became very expensive. Basically, some kings tried to control large portion of the route, and this was because they could benefit from taxes, tributes, and gifts that were brought by traders traveling along the route. In return, they often protected the traders who passed through their kingdoms from attacks by robbers. The best known of the rulers who controlled the Silk Route were the Kushans, who ruled over Central Asia and Northwest India around 2000 years ago. Their two major centers of power were Peshawar and Mathura. Kushans were the best known rulers who controlled the Silk Route, and their two major centers of power were Peshawar and Mathura. Takshila was also included in their kingdom, and during their rule a branch of Silk Route extended from Central Asia down to the seaports at the mouth of river Indus, from where silk was shipped westward to the Roman Empire. The Kushans were amongst the earliest rulers of the subcontinent to issue gold coins, and they were used by traders along the Silk Route. Okay, next topic is here, the spread of Buddhism. So the most famous Kushan ruler was Kanishka, who ruled around 1900 years ago. He organized a Buddhist council where scholars met and discussed important matters. Ashwaghosh, a poet who composed a biography of the Buddha, the Buddhacharit, lived in his court. Ashwaghosh and other Buddhist scholars now began writing in Sanskrit. A new form of Buddhism known as Mahayana Buddhism now developed. This had two distinct features. Earlier, the Buddha's presence was shown in sculpture by using certain signs. And for instance, his attainment of enlightenment was shown by sculptures of the peepal tree. Now, statues of the Buddha were made, and many of these were made in Mathura, while others were made in Takshila. And the second change was a belief in Bodhisattva. These were supposed to be persons who had attained enlightenment. Once they attained enlightenment, they could live in complete isolation and meditate in peace. However, instead of doing that, they remained in the world to teach and help other people, and the worship of Bodhisattva became very popular and spread throughout Central Asia, China, and later to Korea and Japan. Buddhism also spread to western and southern India, where dozens of caves were hollowed out of hills for monks to live in. Some of these caves were made on the orders of kings and queens, others by merchants and farmers. These were often located near passes through the Western Ghats, roads connecting prosperous ports on the coast, and cities in the Deccan ran through these passes. Traders probably halted in these cave monasteries during their travels. Buddhism also spread southeastward to Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, and other parts of Southeast Asia, including Indonesia. The older form of Buddhism, known as Theravada Buddhism, was more popular in these areas. The quest of the pilgrims. As traders journeyed to distant lands in caravans and ships, pilgrims often traveled with them. Basically, pilgrims are men and women who undertake journeys to holy places in order to offer worship. The best known of these are the Chinese Buddhist pilgrims, Fazen, who came to the subcontinent about 1600 years ago, Xuanzang, who came around 1400 years ago, and I King, who came about 50 years after Xuanzang. So they came to visit places associated with the life of the Buddha as well as famous monasteries. Fazen, Xuanzang, and I King, these were pilgrims who became famous and basically visited places associated with the life of the Buddha. So each of these pilgrims left an account of his journey. They wrote of the dangers they encountered on their travels, which often took years, of the countries and the monasteries that they visited, and the books they carried back with them. Xuanzang, who took the land route back to China through the northwest and Central Asia, carried back with him statues of the Buddha made of gold, silver, and sandalwood, and over 600 manuscripts loaded on the backs of 20 horses. Over 50 manuscripts were lost when the boat on which he was crossing the Indus capsized. He spent the rest of his life translating the remaining manuscripts from Sanskrit into Chinese. How Fazen returned to China. See it. Fazen began his journey back from home from Bengal. He boarded a ship belonging to some merchants. They had barely travelled for 2 days when they were caught in a storm. The merchants began throwing their merchandise overboard so as to lighten the load and save the ship from sinking. Fazen threw away his major personal belongings but clung to his books and statues of the Buddha that he had collected. Finally, the storm subsided after 13 days, and this is how he describes the sea. See, the sea itself is boundless in extent. It is impossible to know east or west, except by observing the sun, moon, or stars in their motions. If it is dark, rainy weather, the only plan is to steer by the wind. It took him more than 90 days to reach Java, where he halted for 5 months and before boarding another merchant ship that took him to China. Now see another topic, that is Nalanda, a unique center of Buddhist learning. Xuanzang and other pilgrims spent time studying in Nalanda, which is in Bihar, the most famous Buddhist monastery of the period, and this is how he describes it. The teachers are men of the highest ability and talent. They follow the teachings of the Buddha in all sincerity. The rules of the monastery are strict and everyone has to follow them. Discussions are held throughout the day, and the old and the young mutually help one another. Learned men from different cities come here to settle their doubts. The gatekeeper asks new entrants difficult questions. They are allowed to enter only after they have been able to answer these. 7 or 8 out of every 10 are not able to answer. The beginning of Bhakti. This was also the time when the worship of certain deities, which became a central feature of later Hinduism, gained in importance. These deities included Shiva, Vishnu, and goddesses such as Durga. These deities were worshipped through bhakti, an idea that became very popular at this time. Bhakti is generally understood as a person's devotion to his or her chosen deity. Anybody, whether rich or poor, belonging to the so-called high or low caste, man or woman, could follow the path of bhakti. The idea of bhakti is present in the Bhagavad Gita, a sacred book of the Hindus, which is included in the Mahabharata. So basically in this, Krishna, the god, asked Arjun, his devotee and friend, to abandon all dharmas and take refuge in him, as only he can set Arjun free from every evil. And this form of worship gradually spread to different parts of the country. Those who followed the system of bhakti emphasized devotion and individual worship of a god or goddess, rather than the performance of elaborate sacrifices. According to this system of belief, if a devotee worships the chosen deity with a pure heart, the deity will appear in the form in which he or she may desire. So, the deity could be thought of as a human being, lion, tree, or any other form. Once this idea gained acceptance, artists made beautiful images of these deities. And because the deities were special, these images of the deity were often placed within special homes, places that we describe as temples. Bhakti inspired some of the best expressions in art, sculpture, poetry, and architecture. Now see the term bhakti. Bhakti comes from the Sanskrit term bhaj, meaning to divide or share. This suggests an intimate two-way relationship between the deity and the devotee. Bhakti is directed towards Bhagavat, which is often translated as God, but also means one who possesses and shares bhag, literally good fortune or bliss. The devotee known as the Bhakt or Bhagavad shares his or her chosen deity's bhag. See another term, that is Hindu. So basically the word Hindu, like the term India, is derived from the river Indus. It was used by Arabs and Iranians to refer to people who live to the east of the river and to their cultural practices including religious beliefs. See elsewhere. About 2000 years ago, Christianity emerged in West Asia. Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem, which was then part of the Roman Empire. Christ's teachings were that he was the savior of the world. He also taught people to treat others with love and trust others just as they themselves wanted to be treated. Here are a few verses from the Bible, the Holy Book, that contains the teachings of Christ. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in the heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Christ's teachings appeal to ordinary people and spread through West Asia, Africa, and Europe. The first Christian preachers came from West Asia to the west coast of the subcontinent within 100 years of Christ's death. The Christians of Kerala, known as Syrian Christians because they probably came from West Asia, are amongst the oldest Christian communities in the world. Okay, hope you all understood the cover topics well and try to read the whole chapter. We have completed the explanation part. Hope you all understood it well. Thank you. Have a nice day.